Welcome aboard this top 10 weapons in PUBG Mobile video series. We're going to be looking at numbers 10, 9, 8, and 7 today. And there's going to be probably another 3, possibly 4 videos after this. So stick around, enjoy, and just have a good time.
Uppercut, uppercut, sonic boom!
Of course, as you can tell from the opening sequence, number 10 on the list is the DP28, the dinner plate, the gun that was made famous by Indian amigo Soul Model. Model did very, very well with a DP and an AK for a long time on the Asia server, where I roam. I'm going to be doing these ratings based basically on my own numbers. For anyone that doesn't know, I've been playing since day one of the game. I've jumped up the leaderboards a bunch of times and got ace. Pretty much season 2 was the first time I got it. I've been jumping around, grabbing it since. I'm going to be referencing my numbers, my graphs and everything, which I've data mined and tested in game myself. And I've come up with these, and you might disagree with them, but these ratings are my ratings. Let's get on. The DP28 is an LMG. It is affectionately termed the dinner plate because it's got a huge, big circular magazine, drum magazine, that sits across the top of the weapon. And this, in real life and also in game, allows it to have a very heavy weight on top of it, which lowers the recoil. So it has a very hard-hitting shell. In fact, the round hits as same as an AKM for all intents and purposes. AKM's base damage is 47.9, DP28 is 47.8. There's no real difference between the two. And unlike the AKM, it doesn't have crazy off-the-charts recoil. In fact, it has the opposite. It has insane, great, fantastic recoil. And that recoil gets even better when you crouch or lie down. The DP28 is renowned for its ability to imitate a long-range DMR style weapon with stupidly good sprays that are like laser beams, despite the fact that it's firing one of the heaviest automatic rounds in the game. And something that a lot of people don't realize is that it actually has the same time to kill as an AKM, and it can one-shot a freshly landed player that doesn't have a helmet on. So you're looking at a weapon that can put 47 in the clip as a base number because you don't have to find an extended magazine, is incredibly effective at range, especially when tap fired gently, and can work perfectly with so many other weapons in game. And let's talk about that for a little bit, because that is true also of numbers 9, 8, and 7 in this list, the other guns that are here. And it's going to be a common theme for all 4 of these weapons. The DP is also excellent if you just gently tap fire it. Because of the size of the round, it does more damage than a Mini 14. Like, think about that. When you fire a Mini 14, it does 45 base damage. The DP28 does more damage than that, has more in the clip, can auto-fire, and is able to work perfectly as a secondary switch CQC weapon or even as a primary CQC weapon. Its time to kill is 0.333 of a second, which is better than M416, and if you run it in 90 frames per second, that drops down to 0.318 of a second, which again is quite competitive. And that's something you're going to hear me talk about a little bit as we progress through these ratings, because frames matter in PUBG Mobile. You lie down with this thing, it has a bipod, it's even more accurate. Let's talk a little bit about number 9 on the list now, and that's the M416. I'm going to just break this down. The list as it stands right now at 10 is the DP28. At 9 is the M416, at 8 is the AUG, and at 7 is the G36C. Now, what a lot of people don't understand about these weapons is that they have a bullet speed of 900 meters per second, in excess of that, 937 meters per second for the AUG. And what this does is it means they are just super effective at all ranges. There is a problem that a lot of people don't know about with SMGs. They have incredibly low bullet speed numbers. Now, these are all up on my website, thebushka.com, or you can go to the Discord server, which is in the link in the description below, and it will list all the stats that you need to know. But I'm going to show you this graph. Now, what it does, this graph, is it shows you the bullet speed combined with the time to kill. And MP5K's time to kill is crazy good. At 0 range, an MP5K takes 0.256 seconds to clear a target, a quarter of a second. An M416 takes 0.34 seconds. Now, this is at 90 frames. That's not nearly as good as an MP5K, but by the time you get to 40 meters, the M416's bullet speed means that you clear a target faster than an MP5K. And at 50 meters, the M416 is just getting better and better and better. The G36, the AUG are just the same. So the further away a target is, the better the bullet speed works. And that's why these guns are so good at lasering people in the mid-range. Bullet speed is the least talked about stat in PUBG Mobile. And it's the stat that these weapons are the best at. 5.56 ARs have the same bullet speed as an AWM. Think about that. The Mini 14 has 1,000 meters per second bullet speed. So while a DP28 has this wonderful ability to be very, very accurate at range, the bullets only go at 714 meters a second. The AUG does 937 meters a second, which is 30% faster. And that's important because the way PUBG Mobile works, if you're already knocked, then all the rounds you fired don't count anymore. If you get knocked and you were firing and they were all going to hit with a DP28 or a UMP or a Uzi, who cares? The rounds that got there first are the rounds that counted. And then the knock, your rounds disappear. Which is why people get so frustrated fighting guns like the G36C or the AUG, which is just a slightly upgraded crate version of the M416, because they'll feel like they hit more shots, and yet, or their shots were all on target. What happened? Well, the other guy's rounds got there quicker. To give you some kind of an idea on this, the UMP has a much higher damage round than the M416. The UMP's damage round is actually 42.8 versus the 40.9 base damage round of the 5.56 ARs. And they all have the same rounds. And yet the UMP's bullet speed is 365 meters a second, and the M416's bullet speed is 909 meters a second. That means that in a 50-meter confrontation, the guy with the UMP, despite having a much faster time to kill, is going to lose. And he's going to lose every time, because his rounds just don't get there fast enough. It's also the reason why it's so easy to spray at range with an M416, because you don't have to lead the target by nearly as much as you do with the UMP. And this is kind of scary, because the M416 is so good at all this stuff, and then it allows you the luxury of running, say, an Uzi or an MP5K or an M762 or a Graza or an M249 or a Mark 14 as your CQC weapon, where you can dominate with the characteristics of that weapon, and yet your long-range game is still just as strong as it could ever be because you're able to use full-length sprays. Now, there are negatives to this playstyle. You are very poor in peak fights versus AWMs and M24s and Kar 98Ks, because they can take a shot, and if you don't have a level 3 helmet for most of those weapons, you can be knocked out while you're trying to get your sprays off. But you are very, very effective, especially in a squad setting where 3 or 4 people are all firing 5.56 ARs. Yeah, it can be a real pain in the ass. Now, let me also qualify. The reason guns like the QBZ95 and the SCAR-L and the FAMAS, and why they're not in here, well, it's very, very simple. They don't get a benefit at 90 frames per second. At 60 frames per second, the AUG, the M4, the G36, the SCAR-L, the QBZ95 all have the same time to kill, okay? The SCAR has slightly different recoil characteristics to the M4 and such, but the real key here is that we're talking about guns that have no opportunity to upgrade. So if you're running 90 frames per second, these guns fire faster. I'm not kidding here. This is how the game works. Frames matter. The faster your frame rate, the faster some of these guns fire. There are notorious weapons which have much faster damage output at 90 frames per second than they do at 60 frames per second. The Vector is one of these. It goes crazy off the charts good at 90 frames per second. The M416 also gets a huge buff to its firing characteristics at 90 frames per second. it goes from a time to kill of 0.384 to a time to kill of 0.34. And that's like a 15% decrease in time to kill on a level 2 vest. And that's a huge difference in a gunfight. You fire at a rate of fire of 0.096 seconds per round at 60 frames per second, smooth / extreme. And at smooth / 90, you fire at 0.085 on these 3 guns. Finally, I want to talk about how they unlock a lot of the other weapons in PUBG Mobile. They're the straw that stirs the drink. By that I mean you can run a Kar98 and an M4 and you have a lot of distances covered. And if you're on a map like Miramar or Erangel, if you can make your engagements work from 50 to 75 meters, then the M4 is one of the best in the game. The ARs really are the strongest suit in PUBG Mobile. If you're running a Kar98K, you can afford to run that gun because an M416 will work for you at so many different levels. And if you get good at the game, you start manipulating your engagements so that they all occur in excess of 25 meters. And once you're outside of 25 meters, the M4 just about flogs all the other SMGs. And it really does do that, not just because of the bullet speed, but because its recoil is so slight that it's very, very easy to not miss shots. And it has a higher damage round than most of the SMGs. All in all, the G36C is my pick at number 7 because its recoil is so stupidly good and it has all the other characteristics of an M416. The AUG is my pick at number 8 because it's an M416, but just, I believe, has a slightly better recoil pattern and, even more importantly, has a slightly higher bullet speed. And the M4, because its incredible ability to work at so many different ranges and so many different engagements and be so plug and play easy to use, comes in at number 9. Look forward to seeing you guys in the next edition of this Top Weapons in PUBG Mobile, where we're going to have a look at number 6 and number 5. I'm not going to tell you what they are. You're going to have to turn up and check that out yourselves. Remember to like the videos and subscribe. And until next time, stay safe on the battlefield. Bye for now.